Hello and welcome back to East Coast Bucks. It's January 1st, 2023. Got some good videos coming out from this year and several from prior years. Where I have a little bit of lull in the action, I'll kind of slide those in. We've got some very good hunts that nobody's ever seen before from, let's say, about 4 or 5 years ago, before I started the East Coast Bucks page and everything. I've been videoing off and on for over 40 years. So obviously I've got a lot of old footage. Now, some of the old videos are not the greatest quality because we just didn't have the technology that we have nowadays. But enough about that. Let's move on to the future. As long as I've got fresh ones from this year, the current year, meaning 2022, I'm going to pump those out first, obviously, because there's a strong desire to see those early ones. Just because everybody has followed along through the Facebook page, and also now the YouTube page is picking up, which is my desire. That's the whole reason for the Facebook page, is to get you guys to check out some of these videos, because there's a lot of stuff coming out. There's some stuff that's already come out, as you've seen, but there's a lot of stuff coming out that's really some unique stuff, guys, that was filmed here on the East Coast, Maryland and Virginia. This is all DIY. This is not, this is not paid for hunts. There's no guides setting me up in this spot, and putting the deer in front of me. This show is about showing you how I find these bucks, how I acquire access to some of these properties. Some of this footage, you're going to see a lot more of it in the coming years, especially next year, is actually filmed on public land. Now, I don't go into detail on the public I hunt, but I hunt a lot of public property, let's put it that way. And the reason I don't go into detail is because I hunt the properties that are not getting hammered to death, which is the common problem with hunting public property. So for all of y'all that think, oh, this guy, he only hunts these, primo big buck areas and all that, that's so far from the case, you have no idea. And the few that have hunted with me will attest to that. A lot of these deer are coming out of places that get absolutely hammered, and I mean hammered, by gun hunters. I don't personally gun hunt hardly at all anymore. I haven't in probably 4 or 5 years. Nothing against it. I just prefer, when you've been hunting a long time, it's just you need something else that kind of does it for you. And to me, the video camera and doing that, self-filming with a bow, is something that's really, really hard to pull off. Anybody that doesn't believe me, try it for yourselves. I know there's a lot of guys who do it now, so you guys can attest to this. Now, my quality of video is not always, the greatest, as you'll see on some of the, the big shows on TV. But this is not TV, for one thing. This is real life. This is a video series, and I think some of it's pretty good quality. It's filmed all locally, DIY, and let's just jump right into this hunt. This is a hunt from 2022, this year, which all my stuff is current. If it's not current, I'll let you know. But this is one that was on the page. I called them the Broke 8. It's a really cool hunt. 1st of November, first couple days of November, over here in Virginia. And Virginia was tough for me this year. I thought I was going to be a good acorn year. And a couple areas I had to hunt that I really lean on hard at that time of year, the acorns just kind of died off on me. And so I was having a hard time getting on these deer. I don't have access to really any good, really good big farmland in Virginia. I hunt a lot of wood lots. And now I do have out a few food plots over here in Virginia, and I'll get into that in the next video. And this is one of those areas where I had put out some food plots. Back in the summertime. Now, the way I do my food plots is something that's very interesting that a lot of guys that are DIY guys like myself, you might want to check out, because I've got a little thing that I do that's a little bit different than a lot of ways guys do it. I'll literally just clear out and rake small areas. Sometimes I don't even throw any seed in it. And I do that back in the summertime, and you'd be shocked at what a magnet those little clearings can be. And you're getting ready to see one of those little clearings in this video. So you're actually going to see several of them, because the way I do it, I don't just do it in one area. I'll do it in several spots around my stand. And if you think it doesn't work, you check this video out, and you've probably seen it in other videos, but you didn't really realize, what the backstory on it was. But these little clearings, I call them food plots, but like I say, a lot of times I don't even throw nothing in them back in the summertime because it gets all ate up and torn up. But what happens is stuff starts to grow up in these little clearings. And it can be a magnet for the does, and we all know around the rut, when it gets close to the rut, you've got does, you've got bucks. So let's jump right into this video. I'll be back to you here in a minute to explain what went down, and talk to you soon. Okay, welcome back. So as you saw, the first scene, I had that smaller buck come in. Now, I usually set these spots up, set my stands up, and if I'm going to do any little clearings or, you know, like I say, I call them small food plots, but they're not really food plots. They're just clearings is all they are. So I'll go through these spots, and I like to do it in pines a lot because a lot of times I've found that if you clear out some of these clearings, now you don't want to do too much of it, especially if you're bow hunting. But I'll do them sporadically in areas. The key is it's got to be in an area that's already good, guys. You can't, whenever you hear somebody giving you advice on deer hunting in general, don't think you can just go out and do something in the middle of a spot that's not any good and just automatically attract deer. You've got to be in the right spot to begin with. And all this does is it kind of gets them, you know, when you do these clearings, like I said, you want them, obviously you can set your stand up. When he comes into that clearing, which a lot of guys will have shooting lanes, all I do is improve upon the shooting lanes a little bit and make it a little clearing where a doe can mill around. As you saw in this video, that's exactly the scenario I want. I want a little spot that's going to have that doe check up. Now this is along a ridge line that I've hunted for years. Now I've watched these bucks cruise this ridge line every November for 20 years, before these trees were even there. So what will happen is these bucks will cruise along there. Well, I started doing these little clearings up there, or just clearing out what was already there, about, I'd say I started with it, messing around with it about 7 or 8 years ago. So now I've done it so long that the deer have actually they've come accustomed to it. Meaning they actually have changed their trails and their travel routes. You notice where that buck comes in, and he almost was a little bit far down where he would have winded me like that smaller buck did. I set these spots up mostly for a west wind, because generally what we have here on the East Coast around November, generally most of my spots I'm going to set up for a westerly wind, either southwest or northwest or straight west, which is the best. Although this year we haven't had a whole lot of west winds. So that first early buck, he come in on the east wind, and you saw what happened. I probably could have still got a shot at him, but that just shows you what happens when you're bow hunting and you don't have the right wind. He busted me, and if that was a big buck, he'd have been gone long before that younger buck was. But anyway, so back to the main scene where that, you know, the buck I ended up shooting, when he comes in, he's only 5 yards upwind of me, meaning if he was 5 yards further downwind of me, gig is up. There's no shot, there's no deal, there's no video. I might have had video of them snorting and running off, but that's about it. So I had them does out in front of me, upwind of me. They couldn't smell me, they're out there comfortable. I saw that big doe look down there, and she kind of flickered her tail a couple of times. I'd never even seen that buck till I saw her look down that way. So now I know something's, it could be another doe, I don't know what it is, but I know you can usually tell by their attitude and the way they look at them whether it's a buck or not. So I had a sneaking suspicion this was a buck. I had not hunted this spot at all. This is the first time I hunted it this year. I literally just moved my stand a little ways to get a little bit closer to that clearing because they just seemed to be congregating, and there was actually a scrape over there that I had a camera on. You might be able to make it out in the background. So I had a feeling that that buck was going to cross through this clearing or he was going to bump a doe through there. Well, lo and behold, he comes down that ridge line, sees that doe. Now, if you saw, I let that buck go by me. Remember, I'm trying to video all this. So I'm trying to get as much on video, whereas the old days, I'd just shoot him as soon as I seen him. And I would, you know, have gotten a lot more bucks that way if I was continuing to do that. But I still pull it off occasionally, so I let that buck go on by. My intention was, I said, well, he didn't act like he was going to go towards that doe at all. He acted like he was on a mission to go on down his scrape line. That's a scrape and rub line. Again, back to the rubs, you've heard me talk a lot about it. I don't hunt the actual rubs, but I hunt what's I call a run. Meaning where he's got a rub, he's got a scrape, he's got a rub, he's got a scrape. And this goes on for, let's say, 200-300 yards. And it's in an area that's already a good area. People say, well, do you hunt rubs? Well, yeah, I'm hunting around rubs, but I'm not actually hunting the rubs themselves. I put no value into rubs as far as thinking a deer is going to come to that rub. All that does is tell me, yeah, a buck has come through there. Well, you hear a lot of guys say, well, rubs don't mean anything. And, you know, I differ with that because I think they mean a lot. And, you know, you'll hear guys say, well, that rub only means he was there once. Well, if there's 10 rubs within sight of my stand, that means he's been there 10 times. So do the math on that. So for that theory to not be correct, you got to figure that every time he comes through there, he's come through there at least 10 times. And remember, deer are creatures of habit. So that kind of puts the odds in my favor, I think. So back to the story, he's going on by. I think he's going to go through that opening in the pines you see. So I get ready to draw. I get ready to set the camera up out in them open pines. I'm going to shoot him at about 25 yards going away through those open pines. Well, he does a hook. And almost, as you see, goes back to where that doe is. And I kind of thought he might have done that, but he really did fool me when he did that because I was really getting ready to set up for a shot in them pines. So when he swung back around, he bounced that doe off out of there. I was like, uh-oh, I got to get ready quick now. So when he turned, he's on a pretty sharp angle there. Now remember, I'm shooting swackers now. I shoot all kinds of broadheads. I pretty much shot them all. I just like the swackers now because they fly good for me. There's some things I don't like about them, and you're going to see in this video. But I will say this, it's still got the job done. So that buck's on a hard quartering angle. And that's one thing I've always heard about swackers. You can shoot them on a quartering angle. I shot that deer that you just saw the video on a hard quartering angle. I hit that deer right in the pocket. I mean right in the pocket. Heart shot all day long. Any other broadhead, and this broadhead did the trick too, but any other broadhead, that deer would have been dead 15 yards, guaranteed. What I'm getting ready to show you on the recovery, you check out this is some very interesting footage. You check out what that broadhead did on a hit deer, on a hard quarter, hit right in the pocket. Now it sliced his heart. It sliced this deer's heart. It got both bottom of both lungs, just the tips. Now it only put a slice through them. It did not actually go through the middle of them. One blade of that expandable broadhead sliced both lungs and a big slice to the heart. This deer bled out all over the place, but it took me a while to find him. For one thing, I didn't want to push him. A lot of blood. I kept easing along. I couldn't believe it when I didn't find him at 50 yards after watching that shot, because I mean, that's a smoke shot, smoked all day long. And it did do the job, and it was in a good spot. But check out the wound on this deer, and when you see me zoom in on where that arrow's at, the reason I don't show anything right after this shot, because I didn't know what was going on, to be honest with you. I'm like, I know what I saw. I saw that arrow hit him right in the pocket. Then I see the arrow sitting there. So I'm thinking the arrow just, every time I've ever hit one there, just zips right on through. I never heard like a, a crack of a bone for when you hit the shoulder or anything like that, because a lot of times on that shot, you'll go through and it'll hit that far shoulder. And which is fine. That doesn't bother me at all. I've shot so many like that, and it works out fine. So I'm assuming this arrow just went right on through. Well, it didn't go through. It went in like a lot of these shots do with these expandables. It went on through, it did its damage, and it did bounce off of that far shoulder leg bone down low. It went all the way through and actually cut all that brisket, that thick brisket rib bone right there. Cut that, and that's what made that kind of funky sound. Well, it went in and kind of bounced out, because what these arrows do with that expandable is when they have no resistance coming back out. That's why if you ever find one with the arrow still in it, all you got to do is pull that arrow straight out. It comes out pretty easy. So that's what happened. Now let's pick it up on the recovery, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. Then I'll be back here to wrap it up here in a minute. Well, there he is. I don't want to do the drama because, to tell you the truth, I got really lucky to find this deer. Had a really good blood trail, as you can see, but I'll get into detail of what kind of happened. It's always something, but that's what makes for a good show. And boy, this is a story for the ages. But anyways, real nice deer. Old. Okay, welcome back. So as you saw, like I was explaining in the last little segment, that arrow did something a little bit funky. I've never ever had one like that. And like I always am saying, there's a lot of stuff you're going to see on East Coast bucks that you probably are not going to see in a lot of other places, just because hunting is so different. Every hunt, every outcome is so different. That's what makes it so interesting to me. That's what keeps me interested in it. Even if nobody was even watching these videos, I would video them just for myself, as I know a lot of guys do. I have friends that video deer that will never show anybody. They just do it for their own viewing pleasure. I like to share it because I feel like it maybe will help somebody. And every experience I've ever had bow hunting has made me that much smarter for the next one. When I see the next scenario like that, I say, you know what, I remember this one time when this happened or that happened. Well, if you're a young guy and you don't have those experiences or somebody to explain that to you, it takes you a lot longer to learn this stuff. I come from the old school where we kind of had to learn this on our own. I read 2 books about bow hunting when I was a youngster, and one was by Fred Bear, and the other one was by Chuck Adams. And those books were my gospel, and they taught me so much, and I give, both those guys all the props that they deserve. Because without them books, I would have literally probably took me 10 more years to know what I know now. Now, we didn't have internet available, and, let alone Facebook and YouTube and all these videos and stuff. There was a few shows around then, but, everything was just so much different than it is now. And I didn't have anybody. I grew up in a hunting family, but they were all gun hunters. Nobody bow hunted. I didn't even know anybody that bow hunted. And this is one little point I want to point out. Back in those days, when I got into bow hunting, and I started getting pretty good at it pretty early on. I started figuring out little tricks on it and everything. And this is something I mean very sincerely. The main thing that got me videoing these